Take, for instance, the so-called fossils. The theory of evolution is not referring to fossils, since fossils minus X are not fossils, but an item in a theory, X being the observation which is objective, necessary, and absolute. So what does the theory of evolution amount to? The object of the theory does not exist. Change or evolution is not an actual object. Is inequality an actual object according to the equality enthusiasts themselves? The answer is resounding no. It is not an actual object or real thing. Unequal incomes are not real incomes, for instance. If then equality is not a real object, then likewise evolution or change is not an actual object, according to the proponents of the theory of evolution. So the theory of evolution does not have an existing object of study or of knowledge. That is to say, if the thinking subject lacks object of thinking, then what is it thinking about? The answer can only be, not reality. And the only other alternative is the thinking subject itself. The theory of evolution is thinking about itself, just like naturalism. If the reporting subject refers not to the object, but again to the subject, then that constitutes self-reference and subjectivism instead of science. If it is not reference to reality, then it is not a language about reality. And since it is not a language, it is the opposite of language, namely, it is not words, but the questioning of words, performed by equating words so as to form categories of them that would then overlap words, so as to subordinate and apprehend words and hope to sustain the claim that words or reports of reality are mere properties of those categories and ideas. That is how the naturalist black hole of the theory of evolution is absorbing and abolishing reality. Naturalists had hoped that they can replace every word with a category for word, so as to displace words, language, and reference to reality in order to cut us off from God completely. Then they concluded that they will not be able to find the missing link, the so-called equality, or the so-called knowledge, or the theory, or the thing in itself. Remember how it all started. The abyss was formed by questioning words. Did God really use language? If not, then I am the one presenting language. I am the Word, said the blasphemer. In this way, to question is to doubt as opposed to accepting without questions asked as the way of life and reference to reality. So the theory of evolution is in a rather bad shape, amounting to nothing more than two nouns standing next to each other. It lacks the object, it lacks the subject, and it lacks the relation between them. We can translate the theory of evolution to change changes into change, which is, as we can see, very informative, lucid, and scientifically sound, unlike the statements of faith. The word change in plain English simply denotes confusion on the part of those who stare into the abyss of their self-making. Let us also remember the argument for microevolution. The term microevolution was introduced to confuse people. We are told that macroevolution is that which is to be proven, unlike microevolution, which has already been given evidence of. If microevolution is a change within a species, then macroevolution would be a change from one species into another. At this very point, the opponents of the theory of evolution are making tactical misstep by conceding to the claim of microevolution as if they forgot who the author of the theory is. They will argue, yes, we can see changes within species, but that is no evidence of the changes from one species to another. This is the wrong step the opponents of the theory of evolution are making. The correct step is not to concede even and especially that much, for to concede at this very crucial step to naturalism is to endorse naturalist language as language, which the most important thing in the world for which naturalists are always waiting for and hoping you will do. The reason the opponents of the theory of evolution acknowledge the claim that the changes within species do occur is because they are forgetting the author of the claim. The authors of that claim are naturalists, and as such, their claims are not about reality. Do we see changes within species? Asks the one who claims that species are not reality, but appearances or ideology, since they are changing. While the opponents of the theory of evolution hear and answer the claim that changes occur within species, as if the claim was authored by those who believe that species are non-changing reality. The advocates of the theory of evolution are making claims about species which they do not regard as reality. Yet the opponents of the theory answer those questions as if they did, as if those were claims about reality, rather than about mere phenomena. So when an advocate of the theory of evolution asks, "Do you admit that changes within species exist?" the correct answer would be, "No, I do not, not for a second, since species are fixed reality of which you are not speaking. You are asking about hypothetical species which are changing, which to you are not permanent or fixed reality, and as such, you are not referring to something that actually exists. You have not started communicating about biological world." Such naturalistic questions permeate the communication between the naturalists and the realists outside of naturalism. Naturalists are speaking about hypothetical changing reality, and realists outside of naturalism are answering as if those were questions about actually existing reality, as if those naturalist questions were language or reference to begin with. Always remember, what naturalists want most desperately of all is not to win this or that particular argument, but to have their opponents acknowledge misreference as reference, lies as words, naturalism as language. Naturalists teach us to exclude the authors of words as a prerequisite to thinking and communicating, so we must not take that false teaching as our own, since in reality, there are no words without authors. Let us always pay attention to who it is that is talking to us, before paying attention to what is being stated. Do not reject the cornerstone of communication, the author. This very pattern of naturalist pseudo-communications we must be on guard against. For instance, naturalists will tell you, "Did you know that incomes are not equal?" And how have we been answering that? We have been answering by saying, "Well, yes, we do know that incomes are not equal, but that is simply because pay is in proportion to performance." That is the answer we normally give, although we would be more correct by saying that pay is in proportion to the performer rather than performance. But since naturalism and liberalism told us to disregard the subject, the author of work, we tend to think that work minus the particular worker who performed the work is in fact still a statement about work, and not rather about hypothetical concept of work, which it actually is. Keep in mind, words, statements, and actions have authors which are objective in the very sense in which naturalism denies they are. Now, what is the correct response? Are incomes really unequal when naturalist asks about them? The answer is, what evidence do you present that you are in fact referring to incomes and not to ideas in your theory? Ideas of incomes formed by excluding the authors of both incomes so as to connect them with a gap left after the authors. Gap which is a mindset or concept or attempted common denominator or idea referred to as income. Prove to me that the relation between the performance and the performer is ideology and not reality. In which event alone incomes are unequal. There is a difference between reality and ideology. There is a difference between incomes and attempted ideas of incomes, or what have you. Naturalism is not a reference to reality but to ideology, that is to say, to itself. Naturalism is self-reference. So let us keep in mind that the microevolution argument is based on Heraclitus, who claimed that the world is full of change, opposition, and that everything is in movement or flux, or nowadays, evolution or inequality. So if you are conceding to microevolution, you are conceding to the delusions of Heraclitus and his naturalism as an attempt at language. The changes of the microevolution you are conceding to are the exact same so-called changes Heraclitus was referring to. And since you do not believe in Heraclitean change, therefore you should not apply his terminology in the present day to answer the theory of confusion. That is what the entangled Greeks had said. They said that they see world in change, opposition, or nowadays inequality. And so the lesson from the microevolution argument is, do not concede territory of reality to ideology. The theory of evolution has more gaps than theory. Aside from that, all there is to the so-called theory of evolution is philosophy of the Greeks. For all intents and purposes, they are exactly one and the same theory. It is the ideology of the world of change, multiplicity, opposition, and diversity, which the Greek mindset is unable to know, so it continues to theorize what to do with that so-called change and how to stop it. To stop it would require knowing the changing object, also known as the so-called nature. Everything within the ideology of naturalism is so-called, since naturalism is no reference to reality. Such so-called changing nature, which woman captured, and the Greek philosophy describes, is in a nutshell the theory of evolution. The convoluted argument essentially goes like this. We live in the world of change and entanglement. There exists nature or object that is changing, and therefore there must exist natural knowledge, tasked to stop that very change by privileging equating such knowledge with such nature we are knowing or studying, and constructing the lost missing link. The link must be constructed in order to eliminate duality or plurality of substances, namely the so-called nature and knowledge, so as to achieve oneness or unity. The plurality or diversity of unequal phenomena or species must have evolved out of the hypothetical one object located in between the sum total of all unequals. If such hypothetical postulated one object, the missing link of equality, the universal, be found, we could then know for certain that the multiplicity or variety of species or unequals are indeed not reality but ideology, and then we would have moral grounds for trying to account for that reality. The reason we are trying to account for or bring under the concept the reality we see is that this reality is made of diversity, multiplicity, plurality, or inequality of species. And since we do not know how to privilege one over any other as real at every point in time, therefore we must seek to eliminate the choice by eliminating the diversity of species from existence. When we say species, we mean distinctions between identities. Since species or distinctions are uncategorizable, therefore they are not real, claims the category, the attempted category for truth, known as the knowledge of good and evil. So that is the thinking of both the theory of evolution and naturalism, since they are one and the same privilege of ideology. What are the greatest flaws in their reasoning? The greatest flaw is that such God-denying process of thinking is not really thinking or language, but self-thinking and self-reference and pseudo-language. In other words, these naturalistic reasonings are not references to actual reality you live in. In actual reality, there never presents itself a diversity or plurality or inequality as such. It presents itself only to a mindset, to a principle as opposed to person, to a mindset or to a self-awareness, which had rejected God outside of that mindset. However, a being in time and place always confronts not many or plurality, but just one object at a time of purpose. Only a mind, as opposed to a being in time and place, would try to account for the so-called diversity of species. It is amazing how they have the beginning and ending results of the so-called fossil record. The missing links should exist just as plentifully as your beginning and ending stages. They do not, for the same reason the missing link between your income and your neighbor's income is missing. For some inexplicable reason, there is this supersensible gap between the incomes, and we just cannot find the missing link between them. Why is that? It must have eroded over time like all other fossils. Or, perhaps because there is no gap in the first place. There is no gap between incomes or any other thing. In reality, because you are not referring to reality or to things in reality, such as incomes or species, but rather, or their attempted concepts between which you think there are gaps. And then you try to reduce such diversity of concepts of incomes to one common or universal so-called species or income. Such one common universal link is known outside of naturalism as nothing, the bottomlessness of the abyss of the self-referential knowledge. Carl Sagan will likewise assure us there are no gaps in his so-called fossil record, but he, unlike us realists outside of the ideology of naturalism, does believe he is referring to actual fossils, and not rather to concepts of fossils. That is to say, to fossils minus the creatures which existed outside of the theory of evolution. That is the difference between the anti-realists within naturalism and realists outside of naturalism.